An invitation to speak in Chicago in 1978 in front of the National Health Freedom Organization, which was a public group that wanted to take all kinds of alternative therapies for various diseases in the American public. Well, while I was there speaking and telling my story about cystic fibrosis, there was a booth there from the National College of Naturopathic Medicine. And they were in the audience. They came up to me afterward and said they wanted me to speak at a CME, a continuing medical education thing, because they thought that was kind of an interesting story. And then when I gave that lecture at the National College of Naturopathic Medicine in Portland, Oregon, they asked me to teach nutrition. And I said, I'd only do that if I could also get a naturopathic degree. They said, oh, by the way, what is a naturopathic physician? Okay, I didn't even know what it was. And they had to tell me and go through the process. And I got a lot of exchange credit for all my other courses I did at university and got it done. At that time, I started running into people who were working on the Deshay Act. Back in those days, we were still working on the Deshay Act, which separates out vitamins from minerals. And I understood that the FDA wanted to place vitamins and minerals in the same category with pharmaceuticals, although we'd already spent $100 billion researching it. And a man by the Clinton Miller, which you knew Clinton Miller very well, and he and I collected tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands, and ultimately over 20 years, millions of signatures, and got it into the U.S. Congress, and we got it passed as a congressional act. But one of the people I met along the way was a man by the name of Jonathan E. Moore, who was a First Amendment attorney, one of the great leaders when it comes to champions of freedom. So he's the iconic person to actually give this award to. He has earned it probably more than 100 people put together, because he not only worked with us, but he is a champion of liberty for many, many different companies, many, many individuals around this great country, around the world. So, Jonathan, why don't you come on up? We'll talk a little bit more. Why Cheryl's up here is she holds a very special place in this deal here, right? And you're going to notice a plural in here. I was one of the best men. The first wedding I ever been to, there was multiples of best men. I was one of the best men at the wedding of Jonathan and Cheryl. And the reason why I was one of the best men was I was the one who introduced them. Okay, so let's go. Honorary godfather, to the twins and so forth. Just a really lovely family. But Jonathan, we just love he and Cheryl because they've been such great partners in championing freedom. And he knows not only the First Amendment, he's a First Amendment attorney, but he's also a constitutional attorney. And we've used him in so many of our cases in fighting the FDA. And nobody could win like Jonathan does. He's a historian of the Constitution. Tell us what brought you to be the leader in championing liberty through the courtroom. What brought you there? What is your story? Why don't you spend 5 minutes and tell us your story?
Well, I'd love to tell my story, but when I look at that award, I don't see Jonathan E. Moore on there. I see Dr. Joel Wallach. I just take a moment to talk about that. Health freedom and Dr. Joel Wallach are really synonymous concepts. You have a person who spent his career learning about first animals, working with Marlin Perkins in Africa, and discovering then how to integrate nutrition into the treatment of animals. And so you'll remember the pig pack and all of these interesting animal-sounding things with Dr. Wallach saying you may be as sick as a dog, but that's not a bad thing. I know how to treat that. So Dr. Wallach really did something extraordinary. You have to have a passion. You have to have an animating force that makes you move. Everyone in this audience has that. And they all have a bug, a disease, that they caught from Dr. Joel Wallach. Because he has within him a fire burning. And that is a passion to take this idea of how to transform human health from mediocrity to excellence through the use of nutrition all over the world. But there are barriers to doing that.
Yeah.
Government is not our friend. Government is frequently our worst enemy. And you know, the concept of Dr. Wallach and this passion is not something new. It may be new to the present generation, but it is something that animates and describes and defines what it is to be an American.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't say the word American because I'm identifying a specific race, ethnicity, culture, or even nationality. What it is to be an American is to be a sovereign individual, to be free, to have freedom of choice, to be able to choose the direction of your own life, to be able to choose your own health choices without any interference from the government. But there are many who, when they're confronted with an obstacle like the government, necessarily cower because they say, I'm relatively helpless in the face of this enormous obstacle. And they go away. They leave the field of battle because they recognize that they have few weapons to go against these enormous institutions that are built upon military power. But then, every now and again, someone comes up, like Dr. Joel Wallach, who says, based on principle, I will not let the government of the United States deny the people of this country, and also the people of the world, the right to know the association between, say, selenium and cancer risk reduction. It's just too important. It's too important for a number of reasons. It's too important for health reasons, but it's also too important because it is a fundamental freedom that you have to choose those things from your diet that may help you and to transmit that message to other people. We have a right to life. It's an inalienable right.
Yeah, tell your not just to get old, but to have health.
So it takes great courage to be David in the face of Goliath. And it takes great courage to take that sling and throw that rock and hit that giant in the eye and knock him to his feet and beat him. And then not to stand up triumphant and to bang on your chest, but to take the riches that you've acquired from this new freedom and spread it all over the world.
Come on.
But it's not just health freedom, which is enormous in and of itself. He's built an empire, and you are part of this empire. You are all princes and princesses in an enormous new kingdom that is patterned after the genesis of this great republic we call the United States of America. You see, when we started this country, you may know the story of the Declaration of Independence, and I'm not going to take an hour and a half to tell you a little bit about that story, but I am going to tell you about another aspect of it that you may not realize. Also in 1776, a man named Adam Smith, who was a Scotsman,
Wealth of Nations,
produced a thing called the Wealth of Nations. And in the Wealth of Nations, he went to battle for your individual right of financial and economic sovereignty. And he faced great obstacles because he was attacking the central system of the time, the system of mercantilism, which put up tariffs and barriers to trade in order to protect homegrown financial resources of the richest institutions in the society, government-sponsored monopolies. And so they restricted trade and they blocked people's ability to communicate information or to send materials internationally. And Adam Smith went against this. And he did it based on a fundamental concept which is really reduced to a quote I can give you from Adam Smith. And that is, it is not from the benevolence of the butcher or the brewer or the baker that we expect our dinner. It is from pursuit of their own interest. And it is pursuit of your own financial interest that should not be something that causes you to experience any shame or any feeling that you are not deserving. You are deserving. You are doing good work. It is not that your benevolence per se that causes the world to benefit from this message of health freedom. It is because you have made it a business. It is a free enterprise. It's the only way to sustain it. It is the only way for Dr. Wallach to build that empire. And he has done it brilliantly. And you have a magnificent future ahead of you because you have an ally in Dr. Wallach who started this, who will continue with it, and even when he is gone, that institution and that message will go on generation after generation after generation after generation because of this institution. So pat yourself on the back. Thank yourself for being who you are. You are part of a magnificent experiment to see whether the world can ever be free enough to receive your message and to be courageous enough to fight those battles necessary to make it so. Thank you.
Jonathan, we also got Cheryl in the mix. God bless you both.
You did get that.